All right, we are back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
I'm Shane.
I'm finally here, actually on time.
Scott rolled in, just for the record, Scott rolled in like 40 seconds ago maximum. So thanks for joining. So we're doing another live stream. We figured we'd just hop on and have a conversation about these rookie drafts that we've been experiencing. Guys, I guess general thoughts. We're seeing some chalky stuff, but let's see if we can give the crew here some actionable items to take with them moving forward. And maybe they're still in the middle of their rookie drafts and we can give them ideas for second rounders, third rounders to take. So go ahead, Scott, start us off.
What am I seeing in rookie drafts? Well, I'll start with this. I actually thought it was going to be easier to buy into this class at the spots that I wanted to buy into this class, but I have not had as much luck as I thought. I don't want to buy into like the first round, but I've been trying to buy into the second or third round and have gotten a lot of pushback, especially offering people, even keel trades from like, they're at the 210 and I'm offering a 2023 second, getting declined. Same with the third round. I thought it was going to be a little easier than I thought to get into these picks because I've talked about all year how much I like the running backs, certain formats, how much I like the tight ends. But I haven't been able to get into those picks. I mean, and it's usually the same guys that I'm trying to target. But I've noticed a lot more people, as much as this class is kind of getting hated on, I've noticed a lot more people are just sticking and picking.
Yep.
And it's probably not a great process, but at the same time, like I'm going to end up making so many seconds and thirds and fourth round picks this year that I can't really argue with other people not wanting to trade them away. So it's just been interesting. I thought you were easily going to be able to send like 20-23 seconds for, mid to late second rounders this year
Right,
and get
the
the
206, yeah.
Whereas you can't send the 104 for a 23 first, but you can't send, a 23 second for the 210. So it's just interesting how I thought it was going to be easier. So that's the first observation. And the second observation is I don't understand the process of a lot of people taking the quarterbacks where they're taking them. I can understand if you're taking them in the late second round, but seeing Matt Corral going off the board at like the 202 or Sam Howell going off the board in the second. I mean, come on, he's a fifth round pick,
Right.
I understand that you would probably have to pay a third if he's getting a spot start. So I could see the logic of basically picking like Corral or Willis or Ritter in the second, especially Ritter and Corral, picking them like before you get to the third. But man, people picking them like in the late first, early second, it's just like, I just don't understand that. That's when you should be, if you're going to make that pick, you should have at least put that pick on the block and tried to get like 2 future seconds or something.
Right.
Like that. Those two things have just stood out to me that I'm just sitting and picking. I haven't really traded a lot of picks away and I haven't been able to acquire more. So it's just kind of been chalk and everyone kind of likes to get their guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. Is there hasn't been much trade actions in the ones I've been in. I'm probably been in 6 or so. I should probably be quiet so my wife doesn't hear me. But yeah, there hasn't been much trading. In one of the drafts, there was like literally only 2 people in there, like hanging out. I was sending the @ messages in Sleeper, just trying to see some read receipts. Be like, hey, these picks are on the block. Just nobody around. So did a lot of sitting and picking.
Do you think maybe they just don't like you? Because I've been actually able to make
very possible.
I've been able to make a couple trades. So one of my leagues, I traded the 114 and the something else, 114 and a 2023 second for the 110, so I can move up and get myself a little bit of Skyy Moore because he's just sexy because now he's in Kansas City. Oh, my face is all far away. I've also made another trade where I traded up into the second round, giving up a couple second rounders and a future second rounder, and was able to move up to get Jahan Dotson at like 202. Jahan Dotson's fun because I've drafted him personally everywhere from like 109 through 202. Not each of the spots, obviously, but like that's the range of where I've gotten him. The one thing I've noticed is looking at all my rookie drafts, I didn't know we were going to coalesce like this, but it does look like Drake London's the wide receiver 1. People wanted to make him their wide receiver 1. I'm loving it because I keep having Garrett Wilson drop to me, and drop is a relative term.
Yeah.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson's the guy that I keep trying to buy. Him and Olave, because Olave I see starts tumbling down to like 107, 108, and I'm like, that's just. And I don't even like Olave, but I'm willing to bet that he's going to be pretty good based on his draft capital and his landing spot.
Yeah.
I'll
Let
move up there.
me cut you off there real quick, Shane. So London being I tend to see him as the wide receiver 1 going off the board too. I tend to prefer Garrett Wilson, but why London or why Wilson? Like, help us out here. What's the difference? Who's actually better? I know London went first, but yeah.
I mean, London's the one that the community likes the most, right? So one thing I would say is if you don't believe in what London as your wide receiver 1, and you have the 102 or the 103, depending on when Kenneth Walker goes, see if you could trade back and get anything, even if it's just one spot. And literally anything. I know Scott hates trading with people like that because he wants to be mean to them, and he doesn't want to just take a pittance of a 4th rounder. But I'll take it if I'm sliding back 1, to be honest with you, because I'd rather get Wilson. But London's the 101. He's the one the community likes, and it's because of look, his size. And he landed in Atlanta where they have no wide receivers. Their only wide receiver is Kyle Pitts. And there you go. Atlanta's going to get an elite quarterback next year with Ritter as their backup. Everybody already knows that Bryce Young / CJ Stroud are going to every bad team this year. So there's going to be they're going to mutate. And there's going to be 8 of them like gremlins. They're just going to be all over the league.
Scott, what do you think Garrett Wilson versus Drake London?
So I think the consensus seems to be that Garrett Wilson doesn't have the ceiling that Drake London does. And I've heard a lot of NFL people talking about how they think that the Falcons have this master plan for Kyle Pitts and Drake London to be like matchup nightmares where like no team is going to be able to double team one or the other. You know what I mean? And so like they're trying to create a matchup kind of that none of the other teams in the league have. Or at least most of the other teams have. A lot of teams have like a Garrett Wilson type where they can work the middle of the field, that can get open basically against anybody, but they're not like the dominating physical force that you almost have to put 2 guys on. So we'll see. I mean, I had questions about Drake London, but I'm not a film guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm somebody that's just kind of going to trust the consensus. You know what I mean? If everyone says like he has the highest ceiling and he can do all these things, then I'm going to just roll with it. And I can sell myself on that coming to fruition. If he looks good, then I can sell myself on, I can see where he turns into the next DK Metcalf or AJ Brown type where everyone just wants him. You know what I mean? Because he just looks like that, imposing physical force that's just dominant. So I can see where people have moved him up, especially ahead of, I can see the same thing for Burks. Like you could easily see that with Burks too, which I think is why is everyone comparing him to AJ Brown. Whereas I don't think you see that with Garrett Wilson. I don't think you probably see that with Olave or Dotson. So I can see why people are kind of preferring one or the other. But ultimately, I said this on our Patreon show last night. We have 9 receivers right now that are basically going in the first round. Different orders. I've seen them come off the board. Essentially it's Wilson in London, and then it's Burks and Jameson Williams, and then it's usually like Olave, and then maybe Skyy Moore or Dotson, and then Pickens and Watson. But arguably you're going to see those guys go, 9 of the first 12, 9 of the first 13 picks in every draft. And I can probably tell you that 1 or 2 of those guys is going to absolutely suck. Like be a complete washout where you're like, oh my gosh, in 2 years, he's struggling to even want to keep him on a roster. 1 or 2 of those guys is probably going to end up being, holy hell, this guy's great. I'll give 2 firsts. You know what I mean? And most likely you're going to settle with a lot of them ending up just somewhere in the middle where they're good. You hit on the pick, but you didn't necessarily hit a home run with the pick, but you didn't strike out. That's the other thing. Like this is a perfect class where if you just take a receiver in the first round, you have a pretty good chance of not striking out unless you catch one of the 2 or 3 complete flameouts. But I think receivers just kind of settle back in that range. Here's the thing. If you go out and have like a Elijah Moore or Devontae Smith type rookie season, what happened to those guys now? They just settled like their wide receiver 2s. Yep. So next year they're going to be last year's news, and whoever the top 4 or 5 receivers are, there will be people that will prefer them next year to next year's Elijah Moore and Devontae Smith. And those guys had good rookie years. So you didn't whiff on those picks, but you also didn't like gain a ton of value either. So you can just quote unquote, you're okay. You're neutral.
Yeah, well, I mean, and those teams showed you every step of the way that, all right, we're very happy with their rookie seasons, but, we're trying to improve. Like the Eagles were tied to every wide receiver. The Jets were tied to every wide receiver that was talked about getting traded. So, like before the draft, you kind of had to know this was coming, right? Like you just knew. You didn't obviously know the Eagles were going to trade for AJ Brown, but you had a feeling they were going to draft someone like Treylon Burks or Drake London, depending on if Burks fell or if they moved up. But you knew they were adding someone to that room. Jets too. The Jets were telling you like, "Hey, we're adding someone."
Yep.
So if you value Elijah Moore as a wide receiver one, you might want to move off of him because we really don't. And it's not that we think he's a bad wide receiver. It's just that we're going to add to this room. And I saw that with Elijah Moore, and I couldn't move him. And I really tried to move him in a few leagues. I didn't with Devonta because I'm a homer, and I'll live with it. But Elijah, I have no alliances to or allegiances to, so I definitely was trying to move him.
So let's talk about the wide receivers who are kind of in the back of the first. So you've got the Skyy Moores, you've got Dotson, you've got Christian Watson. Where's your head at with those? I grabbed one of each, just in case. I'm diversifying my portfolio this year in this rookie draft.
So I've already started this, and it's because I had some rookie drafts before it. So I'm already starting to do this now, and I hate doing this because I'm not really a portfolio player. But I start going, this is going to be like my fourth Skyy Moore. I need to even that out with a Christian Watson, or another Jahan Dotson. Maybe not, because like Scott said, even on the high end, some of those guys are going to bust, and none of us are scouts. None of us know which ones are going to do that. And guess what? Even scouts don't know. With the guys that were taken in the back of the first, if I had to bet on someone, I'm going to bet on Jahan Dotson because of the draft capital. But by that same token, I can 100% see why someone would bet on Skyy Moore because the draft capital is not that bad, and he just landed
Patrick
with
Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yeah, and he fits in perfectly in that offense, right? Like they have Juju, who is perfect as a wide receiver, hybrid tight end, and then they have him for the speed to do the other stuff. And then MVS, they also have out there to stretch the safeties too. The one I'd probably put at the lowest rank on that is Christian Watson, who's got the biggest physical metric upside. But I put a tweet out last week. I'm definitely scared of Aaron Rodgers just punching that kid in the face when he runs the wrong route or something.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Christian Watson because I think people are having to reconcile, like, how do I rank these guys after the top four? Because I think it's clearly Olave at 5, but I've seen some where Skyy Moore goes ahead of Olave, and I think that's people just chasing chasing the landing spot. Jahan Dotson, I've seen fall to wide receiver 9. I just got him in a league at the 203 at wide receiver 9, and that's kind of how I play my portfolio. Like, sure, Malik Willis went, James Cook went, Rashad White went. They all went before the first round, was over. So I'm sitting at the 203 going, wow, I now know I'm guaranteed to get one of Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, or George Pickens. I didn't care which one. I never expected those guys to be there at the 203, and they actually left me Jahan Dotson. So I'm like, sure, wide receiver 9, a first round rookie pick at the 203 in a draft. I'll just take my share there, even if I don't necessarily think he's good. I think the other thing is, if Christian Watson doesn't suck, he will be good because he's tied to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers will magnify anybody that's just an average talent. Marquez Valdez-Scantling wasn't bad. You're going to look back and go, he was never great, but you look back at his career and he's been a serviceable wide receiver 4. But it's just, you never really got anything more than that. But I think that's the floor for Christian Watson. As long as he doesn't suck, he's going to be okay. And I think the same can be said about Skyy Moore. Is he going to be great? Is he worth a first round pick? I don't know. But again, he's tied to a quarterback that is going to accelerate the quality of any target that he gets. So I think that's what makes this tough, because you have these guys going in the second round, yet you can sell me that their landing spots are better than guys that had higher draft capital. The wild card is Pickens, because Pickens doesn't have either. He's essentially the late second round pick. Let's call it what it is. Guys that we shouldn't have thought going ahead of Pickens did. You had John Mechie go ahead of him. You had Tyquan Thornton go ahead of him. You had Wan'Dale Robinson go ahead of him. Like if we would have picked, we would have never said, yeah, I'm going to take, Tyquan Thornton or Wan'Dale Robinson over George
Right.
Pickens. But it happened. But at the same time, everyone's hyped about, they landed in a great spot. He landed with Pittsburgh. Every receiver Pittsburgh touches, whether they're ending up good for Dynasty, they at least have a value pocket where you're like, okay, I want some of this guy. I even wanted like James Washington for a little while. Then you didn't want James Washington, but every other Steelers receiver you wanted to get some shares of because of their history of developing receivers. And, there's been some conflicting narratives as what does the George Pickens pick mean?
Yeah, if it's Claypool or Deontay, who's going to, is Deontay going to ask for too much money, or are they going to ship Claypool because of other reasons?
I think one thing that I've heard a couple people say is they want to play Claypool in the slot. And so that kind of conflicts with Deontay Johnson's role. Now, I don't think they're sold on like benching Deontay. They're not going to bench Deontay Johnson or just give him up. But I think this is like double insurance where it's like if Deontay wants too much money, you could maybe put Claypool in the slot and play Pickens. Or if Claypool just sucks and flames out, they pay Deontay and then they have Pickens. So I think it's like a perfect hybrid both ways. And I think he's going to have value right away too. The one thing I've heard is Pickens won't contribute as a rookie. And I don't agree with that. I think every Steeler receiver that's come in as a rookie, if they're good, they play right away. Look at Claypool, look at Deontay, even look at James Washington. Like they got on the field right away. They don't draft these guys to wait 2 or 3 years until they replace somebody else. So it's just intriguing that all three of those guys essentially landed in spots that you could argue put them inside the top 5 or 6 receivers.
And here's the thing about Deontay. People forget because he's been used as a glorified dump-off back. He was a deep threat in college. So maybe the Steelers do want to add Pickens and then, let Claypool play in the slot, Deontay on the outside, but all three guys just moving them all around. But definitely this is, if Deontay wants too much money next year, see you, bro. Because we're the Steelers and all we do is we just draft another second round wide receiver and he's going to be a starter from us. You know what I mean? If Claypool continues to regress in this year, well, guess what? Then Claypool's going to get phased out of the offense like they did with James Washington, and they'll hold on to Deontay. Like the Steelers are smart like that. A lot of teams draft for need. Steelers are like drafting 2 steps ahead of that, except when they draft Kenny Pickett. That's a whole other thing. But when wide receivers, they're master. They give master classes on drafting wide receivers.
Yep. Yeah, let's talk about, just in case some of our folks are, well, I imagine a lot of people are in the second, third rounds of their drafts. Let's talk about the second round though. Let's talk about second round running backs. Who do you like? Who do you like taking? Where are you seeing them going?
Who don't I like? I think that's the better question.
You should see Scott's listener league team, by the way, the first listener league, second listener league, by the way. Subscribe, follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and write a 5-star review and email it to dynastytradesand5@gmail.com. But you should see Scott's team in the listener league number 1. He drafted like 11 running backs in the rookie draft. So go ahead, Scott. We'll start with you. Try to limit it to 3 or 4 names for us. How about that?
Yeah, and I'm not going to really even talk about the specific names because I think you just have to go down the list and say, where are the pockets that I'm going to pick? These guys are all over the place. We mentioned the quarterbacks. You could be in a draft where everyone's chasing Wan'Dale Robinson, David Bell, John Mechie, Jalen Tolbert, all the quarterbacks, and all of a sudden you're getting some of these running backs in the mid-3rd. Other drafts, they're going off the board right at the end of the 1st, early 2nd. So I think it just really depends on your format, depends on your league. I think you're going to see James Cook and Rachaad White go top 15, if not in the 1st round. I've seen him go as high as the 105, 106, and those are like slight point per carry leagues. People just desperate for running backs, so they move them up. We know that's usually a mistake. But I mean, after that, man, I'm just trying to get as many shares of the Dameon Pierce, Samir White, Isaiah Spiller, Brian Robinson, that tier right there. Like I'm trying to get as many of those guys as I can, but I found myself getting much better values on some of the guys that are lower. I mean, one of the guys I think I have the most of thus far is Hassan Haskins. And I think I have him in like 5 leagues already, and he's falling to the 4th. And, he's on the Titans, decent landing spot. He's a 4th round pick, a high 4th round pick. So there's just things that are mid 4th round pick that there's just guys that are falling, and I don't necessarily know why. And I think it's just because there's so many running backs. I see people taking like Tyler Algier way higher than some of these other guys.
Right.
He's a 5th round pick. I mean, I get it. They didn't pick up Jacob's option, but like they didn't pick up Mike Davis's option and they let him go, like it doesn't matter. And then on the other hand, you have like Zamir White, same thing. People are reaching on him because they didn't pick up Josh Jacobs' option. So it's just
well, let me cut you off. Zamir White has better draft capital than Tyler Algier. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. But people are reaching on him like up in the early second round in some leagues. Whereas, I don't really see a difference between Robinson, Spiller, White, and Pierce. You know what I mean? Like I kind of look at them all in the same bucket. So it's just, where are you picking versus which one do you want to take? Like I just want to take the cheapest of those four, I would say. But yeah, it's just, I'm rambling because there's so many running backs to talk about and they're all over the place. There's literally 5 or 6 in every single round. I'm just getting as many as I can because I'd much rather take running backs here than taking like day 3 receivers.
Yeah, I've seen James Cook is going to be Jim Cook is definitely going to be first round when ADP comes out next year.
I'm seeing that already for sure.
I picked him at 109 in a rookie draft, but that was also because I was like, I'm not drafting another one of these same wide receivers that I already have. But I've seen him go 111 and 114. And that's before we've even gotten to like the whole, oh my God, it's a running back. Like, wow, let that soak in. Rashad White's the one that I keep seeing get pushed up too. That one scares me. He feels like Keyshawn Vaughn, and maybe it's because he's on Keyshawn Vaughn's team. But he feels like that all over again. And like Scott was saying, Tyler Algier, I mean, guys, he's still a 5th round draft pick. And I know that they moved on from Mike Davis, but I would not want to be drafting him in the early mid seconds. Like if he's there in the 3rd, fine, but not anywhere in the 2nd round.
I just threw up a question. What do you think about Tyrion Davis Price?
I think same bucket as those other guys I talked about. Yeah, I'd probably put him 5th of the 5, but I mean, he was a 3rd round pick. Got drafted higher than a lot of those ones. Like he got drafted higher than Zamir. He got drafted higher than Spiller. He got drafted higher than Pierce. So I think it's just kind of the rotating nature of San Francisco's backfield. But it's interesting. Put up Tyrion Davis Price against Trey Sermon, blows him out of the water. Every single category you can think of. He's better across the board. And I think that kind of reflects, we're going to look back in a couple of years. The 2021 class sucks. And all the day 3 players sucked compared to this year. Like you have guys that are undrafted this year that would have been better than like the 4th rounders last year. So I think I don't think you can look at this pick anything other than he's Trey Sermon's replacement.
Yep.
Now the problem is like, do you really want to trust a San Francisco running back? I tend just to think if you have one that has value, you sell. And then you keep investing in the cheap ones and then you keep selling them. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he's in the same bucket as those other guys.
So let's shift to quarterbacks real quick. So Pickett, where are you guys seeing Pickett go? I haven't seen him go top 3. I tend to see him go in like the, 105 to 7-ish range in superflex. Sometimes a little bit earlier than that, but where are you seeing him go? Where are you seeing Malik Willis go? And when are you okay with taking the Corrals and Ritters of the world?
Look, I'll say this. I'm fine with Pickett pretty much anywhere in the 1st. I'm not going to do it. I can understand why someone would do it. I'm not going to do it. He should never go over Breece Hall. He should probably never go over Kenny Walker he should probably never go over any of those wide receivers, but I understand it. You know what I mean? At least he was a 1st round NFL draft quarterback. I've seen Malik Willis still getting drafted in the 1st round. But what are we doing, people? Like the whole Malik Willis, look, I loved Malik Willis. I drafted him at 101 in rookie drafts prior to the NFL draft. And it was all based on he's going to have a good landing, or not a good landing spot, but he's going to have good draft capital and his upside is immense. He doesn't have that draft capital anymore. When you don't have that draft capital, that NFL team is telling you, the NFL is telling us, we don't think this guy is very good. When he's drafted in the what did he get drafted in? I don't even care because it wasn't 3rd round. He gets drafted in the 3rd round behind Ryan Tannehill, who is tied in for 2 more seasons based on his contract. The NFL is telling you, and Tennessee is telling you, this is a project quarterback. Like if it hits, great, but it's probably not going to, and we're okay with that. We'll burn a 3rd on him. So people drafting Ritter and Willis in the 1st, like God love you, but you shouldn't be doing that. Kenny Pickett, like I said, I can almost anywhere from 105 to 1 anywhere in the 1st after that. Is fine.
I did see him at the 103 in a 14 teamer. And I think that's just because people are chasing the quarterback scarcity a little bit more because there's 2 extra teams. We talked about this on Manic and Chill the other night. I mean, I do think there is some merit to taking Corral and Ritter before you get to the third round. And that's just simply because it's going to cost you a third round pick to get a fill-in quarterback during the season, even like 1 or 2 starts. So I can understand if you get to the third and you just want to take those guys because, or even like the 208, 29, 210, 211, 212. Like if you take one of those guys, I'm not going to argue because, okay, like you're probably gonna have to pay a third to buy a week or 2 fill-in like Jacoby Brissett if he's going to start for 2 games. Like you're probably not going to get him cheaper than a third. So it just depends on your construction. But instead of, paying thirds for every fill-in quarterback, you essentially could buy one a little bit more expensively here. But at the same time, you can see a path where especially Ritter, but even Corral, because they both land in situations where everyone hates the starting quarterback there. So I can see a path where they start 8 games. But just understand, if you're spending the 210, if I draft one of those guys at the 208 or the 210, I'm picking them to recycle the pick. I'm not picking them because I think he's going to be a future starter in the NFL.
Right.
If Desmond Ritter gives you 4 starts and you spent the 210, you've already made money on the pick. So I think that's the lens that you have to look at it through. Like Shane said, and some people in the chat have said, like I've seen Corral and Ritter go 201, 202, 203. There, you're passing up legitimate like round 1 or round 2 players, or players that are actually going to give you some lasting power. Willis, I think, is different. I actually think I don't want to take the problem with Willis is you should be getting him where people are taking Ritter and Corral, like the mid early second. That's where you should be getting Willis. People are taking Willis at like 107, 108, like in the first.
You're seeing that, huh? I've only seen him taken. Well, I guess you play in some like crazy deep, like.
Well, not just that. So just plug our Patreon chats real quick. But people like to share drafts of what's going on in there, and they'll send screenshots in, and like every time Ritter or Willis goes in like the top 6, someone just sends a screenshot in either Scott or my Patreon, and it's just like happened again. It's really happening.
Well, I'm looking at 2 right now. So these are point per carry leagues, but they're just 12-team superflex. They're not like 16 teamers or something like that. But this one I'm looking at, Malik Willis went at the 110. This one I'm looking at, Malik Willis went at the 109. So you can already determine which players. I mean, you could look at the board and you could pick 3 or 4 guys that he shouldn't have been taken over. But I do think there actually is a path for Willis to have some, here's my prognostication. Willis may never make it as a starter. I think we all agree with that. But I do think there's a path for him to gain some value. I just don't want to spend the 107 or the 108 or the 109 or the 110. But I will take him 205, 206, right at that front end of taking the Zamir Whites and Isaiah Spillers and Brian Robinsons. I would be okay with taking Willis over those guys or over David Bell or John Mechie or Wan'Dale Robinson, simply because I think if he doesn't play right away, he's the one guy that landed in a spot where dynasty players can be very irrational and stupid sometimes. If he sits for a year and we hear positive buzz about how well he went to Liberty and he's developing, maybe he's going to get his shot next year. Like I can see them going into next year with Ryan Tannehill as a lame duck starter, but I believe they can cut Tannehill for $9 million dead cap. But even if they go into 23, is Tannehill with I think it's at post June 1st, they can trade him and it kicks only $9 million dead cap for the season. And then maybe they shift some into 2024. But anyway, you could go in 23 with Tannehill as the starter, but Willis just creeping in the background, getting a little bit of hype to where people are starting to say, I'll give you 2 seconds, or I'll give you a 25 first, something stupid like that. You know what I mean? Like I can see a path to that. I can't see it with Corral or Ritter. Their value is just turn and burn in 2022. Because I think we all kind of agree the Panthers and the Falcons are what? Top 3 or 4 candidates to draft a quarterback high next year. Like if you had to rank the teams, they would be in the top 5 or higher. So I just don't see a path for those guys. Long rant.
See, well, here's the thing. So you could talk yourself into a path for any of these dudes, really. Like there's definitely, I could talk myself into a path for Ritter. Well, Ritter probably the least, but I could definitely talk myself into a path for Corral. But again, this isn't why I would not draft these guys in the first. Please don't ever take anything I'm saying to say draft any of these dudes in the first. But I could see a path for Corral. You know why? Because Darnold's terrible. He's absolutely bad at football. You know what I mean? He was a great running back for the first 4 weeks last year. And then he had to play quarterback and it didn't go well. So I could see Corral getting in there and look, I have a Corral. I have a crush on him, right? So obviously I'm a little biased because I like the kid, because he's tough, because he's got pocket, because he's really good under pressure and he avoids sacks and he's, all that stuff. But I could see at least a path for both of those two gaining value over the year, but not enough. That path isn't clear enough. It's filled with like landmines and like grenades. So I wouldn't be spending a first on there because I'll get blown up.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Corral or Jimmy Garoppolo?
I'll take Jimmy G because I think I'm going to be able to sell him more quickly. I think he's going to get a job more quickly. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's got Jimmy G. As soon as his arms, we know his arm isn't going to fall off. He's going to get a job somewhere. We don't know that about Corral forever, ever.
Yeah, now, and I think if I'm stuck with a couple Devy shares of Corral, and that's what I've been trying to do is flip them for Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield, because I know those guys are going to get another shot. Are they any good? Probably not. But I think the path to Corral or Ritter overcoming not only their current situation, I have no doubt they could start. I think if I had to bet, both of those guys will get a chance to start a game in 2022. Just because I think their quarterback rooms and their teams are so bad that they will be given a shot. But unless that shot happens really early on in the year, and one of these guys gets to start 10 or 12 games and just blows everybody away, which says everything against what we thought this quarterback class was, right? Everyone said it's not that good. They're not ready to play. So let's say one of these guys gets in there in week 4. Can that player, whoever it is, Ritter or Corral, can they carry the Carolina Panthers or the Atlanta Falcons out of range to draft a quarterback and be so good that the team goes, we're not even going to consider trading up for a quarterback?
5% chance.
Yeah, and not that this is going to happen, but we saw the debate come across yesterday with Mel Kiper and McShay saying, you might have 6 quarterbacks in the first round. I think that's another thing. This year's quarterback class was so bad, I can see the NFL starved for guys next year. You know what I mean? Where they might actually consider, especially if Ritter or Corral goes out and actually looks decent, these teams might be going, man, you know what? Maybe we should take these guys a little higher, because what if we hit on one? You know what I mean? So I think that there's just so much for them to overcome, even if they're good. Like I said it on the stream the other night with Shane, Davis Mills would not have survived had he come up against a decent rookie class.
No.
If this is 2021 and it's Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Mills is already replaced. You know what I mean? He just got lucky that he came into a class where no one wanted to draft somebody. So it's just the odds are so stacked against him that I just would rather pass.
Yeah, no, makes sense. All right, guys, let's talk. We're going to stay on a little bit longer. We scheduled it for 30, but we're going to hang on for a little bit longer until Shane gets to disgruntled and ornery. Look at that face. No, so did you see any vet movement? Like people trading, vets to get rookie picks? Or did you try to trade away any rookie picks for vets? Even if you didn't, what's your strategy around that?
Yeah, I've been trying to trade. I've been trying to trade George Kittle for like one of those wide receiver range picks. We'll just call it anywhere from the 103 to the 107, depending on who's still on the board. You know what I mean? Like if I saw Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave falling and me going, but I'm also trying to get a 2023 attached. So I haven't been successful because that's the more important part of the trade to me, to be quite honest with you. If I'm going to give up George Kittle, I moved Mike Evans in a couple leagues for like the 107, 108. And I know that all the risk is on my side, and I'm betting on one of these young receivers from this class that I like to really hit. When someone traded a 106 for Thielen, why? Wow.
Barf.
Yeah, that's a yikes move right there.
Geez, you shouldn't get the 206 for Thielen. I mean,
tell them to watch Dynasty Trades in 5. We won't give you advice that bad. No, Scott, what do you think?
I've tried. I've tried to see. The problem is like it's real when you're on the clock. People don't want to move the picks, but at the same time, like if you can draft a rookie receiver, then you should at least shop that pick to see what receivers you can get. I just haven't. I know that there's an element of I'm in too many drafts. I mean, I have 16 drafts going on at one time right now, and I have them all up on my screen. So I'm trying to track all of them. I have some ADP that I'm using. I'm trying to keep track of who's available and what. So it's busy to try to do all these drafts. So it's really hard to like engage in back and forth trade opportunities. It's more like I'm just cold sending out offers, like trying to get a couple picks in this range, but I don't have time for the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So if you're in less leagues, I think you can make that happen. You can strategically look through rosters and say, hey, I want to shop this player. What can I add to this player to, maybe get this pick or maybe move down in the draft. Like you can make those moves with a little more clarity than you can if you're in 16 drafts at once. But no, I haven't seen many trades. Honestly, I haven't. I thought I would see more trades in the second round range. And maybe as I start to accumulate some of these picks, if I look and I go, okay, I have, Isaiah Spiller in 4 leagues already. Before picking him, maybe I should try to trade and get something for him. But at the same time, if I think it's good value, most of the offers I've gotten, if any, are, okay, no, I'm not going to trade you the 208 for a 2024 second. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather make the pick. Yep. So I haven't seen, maybe it's just inactive leagues. Maybe it's just people that are in a hurry to get the draft over. I mean, I don't know about Shane, but I've had
I've seen
a draft that started Monday morning and it's already over. People are just, they don't even sit and try to trade. It's just draft, and then it's gone. So
here,
I got a couple of my rookie. I had one league. I'm in an IDP league, one IDP league, and the rookie draft started yesterday and it's over. But apparently he put us on a timer. So that really restricted trading because we had like 10 minutes and I was like, oh, okay. But in the other leagues, I've been able to send offers. Like I said, I've been able to look and go, and I've been able to be real specific and go, oh, okay, Garrett Wilson's still on the board at 106. I'll trade into this pick. And if they don't take it, I'll go, okay, well, I'll try the next person because if they didn't take them, you know what I mean? In a couple different of my leagues where there's wide receivers that have fallen, again, not fallen, but guys that I personally have ranked higher or sitting there, say like Jahan Dotson and Skyy Moore went higher than Treylon Burks. And I go, well, this isn't a bad spot to get Treylon Burks. Let me see if I can get in here and try to get in. If I can't get this person, if they don't take them, I'll try to get them in the next pick. Lucky for me, I'm not in 16 drafts right now. That's ridiculous.
Here, let's I'm in an absurd amount too. I even got timed out in one. Luckily there was no penalty for that. Okay, let's help out Brandon here. I got the 210 up. Who are you taking? Spiller, Davis Price, Mechie, Alec Pierce, or Tolbert?
Mechie or Spiller. Pick your poison.
So I'm really not going to help you at all here because I'm going to go with Alec Pierce.
I think I'd go Spiller.
I would go Spiller.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. Look, you want a nice committee back that when Austin Eckler goes out, and he will go out, that's going to be able to step in there and give you a start. Definitely, it's going to be Spiller. They've tried that the last few years there. I can't even remember the running backs. I keep getting them wrong, so I'm not even going to try anymore. All the backups that they've tried to give a role to that just didn't take it. Like if Spiller could be adequate at it, he'll have a 10 to 12 touch role on that team.
Well, so let me just push back on this. What you're drafting Isaiah Spiller for is to become Alexander Mattison. That's his career. That's what I want out of him. I don't want any more. I don't want him to ever take over a backfield. I don't want him ever to, push away the starter and then they don't re-sign the starter and he becomes Aaron Jones or Chris Carson. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting to draft a bunch of Tony Pollards, Alexander Mattisons. Those are the types of players that I want for 3 or 4 years because surprisingly, those types have held their value for 3 or 4 years. Yes, Alexander Mattison and Tony Pollard have always been they've been worth a second round pick for 3 years. Whether they're worth it or not, people are going to see a guy like Zamir White or Isaiah Spiller as, damn, man, they're real close to being good enough to be a starter. If they were just anywhere else and not on this team or that team, they'd be a starter. And that's valuable. I mean, you've gotten how many starts out of Alexander Mattison since he got drafted? Half a dozen or more? And that's well worth where you took him. So that's, I think you have to reset the expectations. And most people would go, well, if all I'm going to get is Alexander Mattison, why do I not take a shot on John Mechie or Alec Pierce? They're third. They could hit, Shane. They could hit. But what if they don't?
75.
And if they don't, you know what? And here's the thing: if they don't, great. I'm going to flame out on that wide receiver. And you know what? I'm going to make that same bet again next year. I'm going to draft on a wide receiver with like day 2 capital, And then, you know what? I'll load up on running backs in the 3rd and the 4th round. Because one thing I've learned about us in fantasy football, we're very bad at picking who the backup and handcuff running backs are going to be. We just need bodies more so than names. So, I mean, personally, I'd like to I'll fill up on them in the 3rd and 4th rounds if I can. And I think in a deep class like this at running back, you'll still find some guys in the 3rd round, maybe not the 4th, but in the 3rd round, because we just did a mock the other night, and in the 4th round, it was not pretty. So in the 3rd round. Well,
but I think the ones that stick are the ones that have the name cachet and the pedigree. Those you're not going to probably see a guy I really like Kennedy Brooks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy Brooks was an undrafted free agent though. He's probably only going to stick if he's just way better than everybody thought. But a guy like Zamir White or Isaiah Spiller, they're going to stick. And if they're actually decent, they're going to keep a very level playing field in terms of value for the next couple of years. They're going to have value now, and they may have a small percentage chance where they're actually moving into a starting role. But that's not why I'm drafting them. I'm not drafting them because I think they're going to take over a backfield. So I don't care about who's in their backfield or any of that. Now, if they ever have let's say Austin Eckler goes down for the season, I would say the same thing about selling them, because for the same reason I want to buy them, then I would sell them if they ever spiked in value. You know what I mean? So I just think they're actually more of a stable asset than, great. You draft Alec Pierce and he becomes like Gabe Davis. He's really never been worth a first either. And that's a high-end outcome for a guy that's a 3rd or 4th round pick.
After he had 17 touchdowns in the one game, everybody was trying to tell me that. But I take your point. But, this is more of our life view too, right? Scott's more of a pessimist, where I'm the bright-eyed optimist. So I'm always seeing the upside, where Scott's seeing the downside to it. So I'm shooting upside, which, trust me, I know that's going to hurt me come week 13 when I have no running backs to start, but it's also going to feel good when I hit on that wide receiver like Deontay Johnson in the late 2nd round or whatever. And I can be like, whoa, that's all I'm going to remember is this Deontay Johnson pick, and then tell you about that pick probably for the rest of my life and not mention all the other 2nd round wide receivers that I wasted a pick on.
Well, who's your non-1st or 2nd round receiver this year that you are confident enough to continue to draft in the early 2nd of these drafts and just say, I'm going to bet on him over every other secondary running back? Because when I pose that question, I get a lot of people that come out of the woodwork. Dude, I was on Cooper Kupp. Dude, I was on Terry McLaurin.
Of course.
But who weren't you on? Who weren't you on in the 3rd round over the last 7 years when I roll off the names, and 85% of them are worthless? So that's the thing. If you can tell me if it's going to be David Bell, if David Bell hits, people are going to like him. Shane Manila will probably give you a 24 first if David Bell goes out and has a top 24 season. He will.
Yes,
am I wrong or am I right?
That's why I took him in the listener league. I was like, honestly, Shane's gonna pay me for David.
Did you see his college production? Look at his college production.
He's a good football player. Yeah.
Exactly.
He's just not, he's not athletic. He's not especially fast, nimble.
So then he's Keenan Allen or Cooper Kupp.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
So trust me, I get that. We're not going to remember the 11 wide receivers that didn't hit in the round, but yes, you will hear about Cooper Kupp and Deontay Johnson until you die. You'll be on your deathbed, and someone will come by and tell you, "Hey, remember that time I drafted Cooper Kupp at 305?"
Yep. Okay, so a couple things real quick. One, if you're watching and are liking it, please hit that like for us. That'd be much appreciated. Two, if you wouldn't mind throwing in, like we did on the last live stream, throwing in comments for future live streams, future shows, what have you, that was very helpful. We appreciate those suggestions. And third, last thing, let's just rewind real quick and talk Kenneth Walker versus the wide receiver 1. Why would you take Kenneth Walker instead of the wide receiver 1? Positional scarcity, but just rap about that for a couple minutes, and we'll shut this down.
So I've been in that position and I'm not doing it. And I know you should, right? Because positional scarcity, but I don't want to, because I don't think he's going to be better than several of these wide receivers, especially not the wide receiver 1, whoever I might deem that to be. Usually I'm all about taking the running back, right? But I don't want people to think we hate Kenneth Walker. I don't hate Kenneth Walker. It's just that I see a much greater upside for Garrett Wilson, Drake London than I do a Kenny Walker.
Well, we covered this on the live stream the other night. Like, I don't really want to take Kenneth Walker just because I want to probably try to exploit the fact that someone else wants to take him because he's the only running back in that range. That's it. I mean, would I take him? Will I end up with him in 1 or 2 drafts? Probably. But those will probably be strategically placed where I'm trying to take him in like a point per carry league and fading him in maybe any league where it's just PPR, or any league where it's only start one running back. Makes no sense to really draft into a running back like Kenneth Walker versus some of the other players. I'd rather take the shot on a receiver there. But I can argue the one thing people have reached out to me. I get DMs all the time on Twitter and in group me from our Patreon chat, and they're like, "I'm on the clock. It's 1:03. Kenneth Walker's there. Should I take him?" So one thing that I've said is basically, I put this on Twitter today that I'm trying to go into every single season where if I have a quote unquote contending team, and we can do a different show on kind of what the parameters of that would be, but I want to try to build around like a couple stable running backs. Two stable running backs. Give me 2 top 24 running backs. If you have a team that's just kind of been punting running back for a year or two, and you have 1 pick and Kenneth Walker's there, and you're like, he automatically becomes my RB1, but you have a stacked team at quarterback and wide receiver, then do it. That's where you're gaining something by the roster construction. You're not gaining something where, like someone showed me a roster the other day. They have 5 top 15 quarterbacks, and they have like 8 top 40 receivers. And they're going like, should I take Kenny Pickett? Because it's a 14-team league. Like, they're stacked at quarterback. And I'm just like, you know what? You're already to the point where you could afford to take a loss in a trade at quarterback or receiver just to get back in alignment with your roster construction. So take Kenneth Walker. Don't nickel and dime. Don't move back for a third. Just take him because he already fits your roster construction. And I think that's big. And you have to examine that, and you kind of need to get specifics probably from somebody to look at it versus, just take them. Because I don't really think, like Shane said, there's not just like a clear value. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, we're going to sign it off. So how do I normally do it? All right, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Check out the channel. Subscribe if we heard your biz, right? Something lame like that. No, appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Thanks for the ideas. We appreciate you subscribers. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Say bye, dudes.
Later.
Yep.
Be chill.
Later.
Thanks for checking in with us.